from a director's wife allegedly making racist comments that sparked a chokehold incident to Eddie Murphy painting artwork that appeared in the film. Coming to America's production was filled with bizarre behind-the-scenes drama that rivaled its on-screen comedy. Critics couldn't recognize Murphy under makeup. A future Oscar winner had a deleted haircut scene, and the fictional McDowell's restaurant would later trigger real lawsuits decades after filming. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Coming to America. Fact 1. Eddie Murphy allegedly put director in chokehold. Behind the scenes of Coming to America in 1988, the relationship between Eddie Murphy and director John Landis became so tense that it allegedly escalated to physical confrontation. According to reports from People magazine at the time of the film's release, crew members overheard Deborah Nadoolman, who was both Landis's wife and the film's costume designer, making complaints about Murphy's tardiness using racially inappropriate language. When Murphy learned about these alleged comments, witnesses claimed he became so furious that he confronted Landis himself rather than his wife, catching the director in a chokehold and demanding an apology for what had been said. In a 1990 interview with Playboy magazine, Murphy described the incident in his own words, explaining that he grabbed Landis by the throat in what he called a playful manner, though he admitted he squeezed hard enough that Landis couldn't breathe. Murphy recounted that after he released him, Landis fell down, his face turned red, his eyes watered up, and he ran off the set. The confrontation didn't end there. As Murphy said, Landis later came to his trailer where they had a tense conversation with Landis's voice trembling. What makes this situation even stranger is that Murphy had specifically fought to get Landis hired for Coming to America in the first place. Murphy told the magazine he had bent over backwards to help Landis, whose career was struggling after directing 3 unsuccessful films and dealing with the aftermath of the deadly Twilight Zone movie helicopter accident. Murphy originally planned to direct the film himself, but gave the job to Landis as a favor. The irony wasn't lost on Murphy, who expressed frustration that he had worked so hard to help someone who he felt had ultimately disrespected him. Despite this explosive behind-the-scenes drama, the two somehow managed to complete the film and even work together again 6 years later on Beverly Hills Cop 3. Fact 2. Murphy hired Landis to save career. The behind-the-scenes story of how John Landis got the directing job for Coming to America is one of the most surprising acts of professional generosity in Hollywood history, especially considering how badly it would eventually sour their relationship. Eddie Murphy had originally planned to direct the film himself, working from a story he had personally created, but he made a decision that stunned many people in the industry when he handed the director's chair to John Landis instead. Murphy's reasoning was both charitable and brutally honest. In a 1990 Playboy interview, he explained that Landis had just finished making 3 consecutive box office failures, and his career was essentially hanging by a thread. This wasn't just Murphy's opinion, it was the reality of Hollywood at that time. Landis was also dealing with the aftermath of the Twilight Zone trial, where 3 people, including actor Vic Morrow and 2 child actors, had been killed in a helicopter crash during filming of Landis's segment of Twilight Zone, the movie, in 1982. Although Landis was ultimately acquitted, the tragedy had severely damaged his reputation and made studios hesitant to work with him. Murphy had worked with Landis 5 years earlier on Trading Places, a collaboration that helped launch Murphy into superstardom, and he felt he owed the director a debt of gratitude for that opportunity. So Murphy convinced Paramount Pictures to hire Landis for Coming to America, essentially using his own star power to rescue Landis's failing career. In Murphy's own words, he said he figured he would give this guy a shot, because his career was in serious trouble. The irony of this generous gesture is that it led to one of the most contentious working relationships in 80s cinema, with Murphy later stating that Landis ended up mistreating him throughout the production. Despite this, the film became a massive hit, earning over $288 million worldwide and putting Landis back on Hollywood's A-list, which makes Murphy's career-saving favor all the more remarkable. Fact 3. Reverend Jesse Jackson didn't recognize Murphy. One of the most entertaining stories about Coming to America's groundbreaking makeup effects involves a moment when even one of the most recognizable civil rights leaders in America was completely fooled by Eddie Murphy's transformation. According to Murphy himself, the legendary Reverend Jesse Jackson approached him after seeing the film and personally thanked him for making such a meaningful casting choice by hiring so many elderly black actors to appear in the barbershop scenes throughout the movie. Jackson was genuinely moved by what he perceived as Murphy's commitment to giving older African-American performers prominent roles in a major Hollywood production, which was relatively rare at the time. The only problem was that Murphy hadn't actually cast a bunch of elderly actors for those parts. What Jesse Jackson didn't realize was that Murphy himself was playing multiple characters in those barbershop scenes, transformed by the incredible prosthetic makeup work of Academy Award-nominated makeup artist Rick Baker. Murphy portrayed not just Prince Akeem, but also the fast-talking barbershop owner Clarence, the elderly Jewish customer Saul, and sexual chocolate band leader Randy Watson. Arsenio Hall was similarly disguised as several characters, including another barber named Morris and the overly enthusiastic Reverend Brown. When Murphy revealed to Jackson that he had actually played those elderly characters himself, Jackson was reportedly mortified and embarrassed by his mistake. He told Murphy that he needed to watch the film again, this time knowing the truth about who was really under all that makeup. This story perfectly illustrates just how effective Rick Baker's makeup work was on the film. The prosthetics were so convincing that even someone as observant and culturally aware as Jesse Jackson couldn't tell he was watching one of the biggest movie stars in the world playing multiple roles right in front of him. The makeup transformations were so complete that they fooled not just regular moviegoers, but even prominent public figures who you'd think would recognize Murphy's voice and mannerisms, no matter what he looked like. Fact 4. Critics missed Murphy's multiple performances. When Coming to America hit theaters in June of 1988, something remarkable happened that speaks to just how incredible the makeup work was in this film. Some professional movie critics watched the entire movie, wrote their reviews, and completely missed one of the most impressive aspects of Eddie Murphy's performance. They didn't realize that 3 out of the 4 characters sitting around arguing in the barbershop scenes were actually Murphy and Arsenio Hall, transformed by Rick Baker's Oscar-nominated makeup effects. According to Eddie Murphy himself in a later interview, certain critics found no comedic significance whatsoever in those famous barbershop sequences where the old men debate about boxing and other topics. These reviewers genuinely believed they were watching a group of elderly actors having conversations, never connecting the dots that the fast-talking barber Clarence, the Jewish patron Saul, who argues about Muhammad Ali, and the lead singer of Sexual Chocolate, named Randy Watson, were all the same person who played Prince Akeem. Arsenio Hall also disappeared into multiple characters under heavy prosthetics, including Morris the second barber and the extremely unattractive woman who hits on Akeem and Semi at the nightclub. The makeup work by Rick Baker was so convincing that it fooled professional film critics whose job was to analyze every aspect of a movie's production. These weren't casual moviegoers who might miss the credits or behind-the-scenes details. These were people who reviewed films for major publications and were supposed to notice these kinds of performance achievements. The transformation was so complete that even when Murphy and Hall were listed in the credits for playing multiple roles, some critics apparently didn't put 2 and 2 together while watching the actual scenes unfold on screen. This oversight becomes even more impressive when you consider that the makeup work was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Makeup, which should have been a major clue that something special was happening with the character transformations in the film. Fact 5. Studio-demanded white actor in Cast Coming to America featured one of the most diverse casts in 1980s Hollywood, with nearly every major role filled by black actors. But that creative decision didn't sit well with studio executives at Paramount Pictures. According to Eddie Murphy himself, the studio made it clear they wouldn't greenlight the film without at least one white actor in a prominent role, which led to comedian Louis Anderson being cast as Maurice, one of the employees at McDowell's fast food restaurant. Murphy revealed this surprising detail during a 2021 interview on The Today Show, explaining that Paramount executives were blunt about their requirement. The studio told the production team they needed somebody white in the film because the whole cast was black, and they made it clear they weren't going to make the movie without meeting this condition. Rather than leaving the casting entirely open, Paramount actually provided Murphy and his team with a specific list of 3 white performers they could choose from to fill this mandated role. Murphy and Arsenio Hall selected Louis Anderson from that short list because they already knew him personally and genuinely liked him as a performer and person. Anderson had built a solid reputation in the stand-up comedy world by the late 1980s, and the 2 stars felt comfortable working with someone they had an existing relationship with rather than bringing in a complete stranger just to satisfy studio demands. In the film, Anderson's character Morris works alongside Prince Akeem and Semi at the McDonald's knockoff restaurant, appearing in several scenes throughout the movie. This behind-the-scenes casting requirement reflects the Hollywood studio mentality of the 1980s, when executives worried that films without white actors in prominent roles wouldn't attract mainstream audiences or perform well at the box office. Despite these concerns, Coming to America became a massive commercial success, earning over $288 million worldwide and proving that audiences were more than willing to embrace stories centered on black characters and culture. Fact 6. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s scene was deleted. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s very first appearance on the big screen happened in Coming to America. But what most people don't know is that he actually filmed a much longer scene that never made it into the final cut of the movie. In the version that audiences saw in theaters, Gooding appears briefly as a young customer getting a haircut at the My T Sharp barbershop when Prince Akeem and Semi first walk in. But his role was originally supposed to be much more memorable and much funnier. According to reports from the production, the deleted scene showed Gooding's character sitting in the barber chair when he had to confess to Clarence, the fast-talking barber played by Eddie Murphy under heavy makeup, that he didn't actually have enough money to pay for his haircut. This was a pretty bold move considering Clarence's no-nonsense personality and the way he ran his barbershop with strict rules and loud opinions about everything from boxing to politics. The scene then took a dark comedic turn when Clarence, clearly not happy about getting stiffed on payment, decided to teach the young man a lesson by deliberately shaving a bald patch right out of the middle of his hair as punishment for trying to get a free haircut. The scene was completely filmed and ready to go, but it ended up on the cutting room floor during the editing process. For Cuba Gooding Jr., who was just starting out in Hollywood at the time and would go on to win an Academy Award for Jerry Maguire just 8 years later, having his scene cut was a major disappointment. The actor later expressed how let down he felt that his first movie role got reduced to just a quick glimpse instead of the funny character moment it was supposed to be. While viewers can still spot him in the barbershop scene, if they look carefully, they'll never get to see the full performance he gave or the comedic payoff of that bald patch punishment that was meant to get laughs from the audience. Fact 7. Murphy painted artwork in Lisa's apartment. Eddie Murphy wasn't just the star of Coming to America, he was also the artist behind the paintings that decorated Lisa McDowell's apartment throughout the film. When you watch the romantic scenes between Prince Akeem and Lisa in her home, those aren't just random props pulled from a studio warehouse or rented from an art gallery. Every single painting hanging on those walls was created by Murphy himself, who brought his own artwork to the production as a personal touch that most viewers would never notice. The most clever piece in the collection was Murphy's parody of a famous painting by Maurice Utrillo, the French artist known for his beautiful Parisian street scenes from the early 1900s. Murphy took Utrillo's distinctive style and gave it a hilarious Coming to America twist by replacing the charming Parisian cafes and shops with none other than McDowell's restaurant, the fictional McDonald's knockoff that serves as a central location in the film. To complete the joke, Murphy even changed the signature at the bottom of the painting from Utrillo to McTrillo, a playful nod that connected the artist's name to the McDowell family. This wasn't just a one-time gag either. Murphy loved incorporating things he had personally created or photographed into his movies whenever possible, treating his films as opportunities to showcase different creative talents beyond acting. The paintings added an authentic, lived-in quality to Lisa's apartment that helped sell the romance between the characters, even though audiences had no idea they were looking at the work of the film's leading man. It's one of those hidden details that shows how much care and personal investment Murphy put into the production, going far beyond what his contract required and adding layers of creativity that enriched the final product in ways that only a true, multi-talented artist would think to do. Fact 8. Murphy fooled Paramount Studios staff. After spending hours in the makeup chair getting transformed into Saul, the elderly Jewish man who hangs out at the barbershop, Eddie Murphy decided he wanted to test just how convincing Rick Baker's Oscar-nominated makeup work really was. So Murphy came up with a plan that would become one of the most amusing behind-the-scenes moments from the entire production of Coming to America. He got himself a golf cart and started driving around the Paramount Studios lot, going from one department to another while still in full costume and prosthetics. The makeup was so convincing that Murphy looked like a completely different person, with wrinkles, different facial features, and the appearance of someone decades older than his actual age at the time. As Murphy drove around the studio, he would park the golf cart, get out, and approach various crew members and studio employees he knew. Then, speaking in his normal Eddie Murphy voice without any character accent, he would introduce himself by saying, "Hi, I'm Eddie Murphy." The reaction was the same every single time. Absolutely nobody believed him. People would look at this elderly man, claiming to be one of Hollywood's biggest stars, and just dismiss it as either a joke or someone who was clearly confused. The disconnect between hearing Murphy's recognizable voice coming out of what appeared to be an old Jewish man's face was so jarring that people's brains simply couldn't process that it was actually him, standing right in front of them. This little experiment proved just how incredible the makeup transformation was, and showed that Murphy and Hall could walk around completely unrecognized when in character. It also demonstrated the massive amount of work that went into creating these characters, with Murphy spending hours each day in the makeup chair so that Rick Baker and his team could apply the prosthetics that would completely change his appearance for multiple roles throughout the film. Fact 9. McDonald's manager threatened lawsuit. On set. The day the McDowell sign went up during filming of Coming to America, the production crew experienced a moment that perfectly mirrored the movie's own running gag about trademark infringement. A McDonald's manager from a restaurant located about half a mile up the road noticed the familiar golden arcs being installed on what was actually a closed Wendy's location on Queens Boulevard, and he immediately assumed the worst. Without hesitation, the manager stormed onto the film set with his lawyer in tow, furiously taking photographs of the McDowell's signage and set dressing while threatening the crew that they would be sued for everything they were worth. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on the production team, considering that the entire joke of McDowell's in the film revolves around Cleo McDowell's character insisting his restaurant is completely different from McDonald's because his buns have no seeds and he has the golden arcs instead of the golden arches. The real McDonald's manager was essentially acting out the exact scenario that the movie was parodying, completely unaware that he was interrupting the filming of a major motion picture rather than discovering an actual trademark violation. Once the crew explained to the manager and his lawyer that they were filming a comedy starring Eddie Murphy and that the fake restaurant was just a movie set, the situation was resolved, though it gave everyone on set a good laugh. The incident demonstrated just how protective McDonald's was of its brand identity, even when faced with what turned out to be a fictional parody restaurant that existed only for the purposes of making a movie that would go on to gross nearly $300 million worldwide. Fact 10. John Amos had McDonald's connection. The irony of John Amos playing Cleo McDowell in Coming to America runs deeper than most people realize, because the actor who spent the entire movie insisting that his restaurant wasn't ripping off McDonald's actually had a long history with the real Golden Arches. Before he became a familiar face on television shows like Good Times and Roots, John Amos worked at the very first McDonald's location that opened in Canada, giving him first-hand experience with the fast food giant that his character would later shamelessly copy on screen. But his connection to McDonald's didn't stop there, and this is where the story gets even more interesting. In 1971, Amos starred in a McDonald's commercial that became quite famous at the time, a musical advertisement called Grab a Bucket and Mop that featured singing and dancing to promote the restaurant chain. The commercial showcased Amos in a very different light than the protective father figure he would later become known for playing, and it remains a fascinating piece of advertising history from that era. Director John Landis, who loved including inside jokes and references in his films, almost certainly knew about Amos's McDonald's background when he cast him as Cleo McDowell. This bit of casting genius added an extra layer of humor to the scenes where Cleo nervously explains the differences between his restaurant and McDonald's, insisting they have the Big Mick instead of the Big Mac, and that his buns have no sesame seeds. The scene where Cleo watches nervously as he thinks McDonald's photographers are taking pictures of his golden arcs becomes even funnier when you know the actor delivering those lines once actually worked for the company and appeared in their advertisements. There's even a moment in the film where Cleo stares strangely at Akeem while he's trying to use a bucket and mop, which some fans believe was Landis's subtle nod to Amos's old Grab a Bucket and Mop commercial, though this has never been officially confirmed. Fact 11. Landis used whiteface as blackface payback. One of the more unusual creative decisions behind Coming to America involved director John Landis deliberately choosing to have Eddie Murphy play an elderly Jewish man in heavy makeup as a form of historical payback. Landis had read about how Jewish comedians in the early 1900s often wore blackface to portray stereotypical and racist depictions of African American people. And he thought it would be interesting to reverse that dynamic by having Murphy, a black actor, play a Jewish character in what could be called whiteface for the film's barbershop scenes. The character in question was Saul, one of the cantankerous old men who spent their days at the Mighty Sharp barbershop arguing about boxing and telling bad jokes. Under the Oscar-nominated makeup work of legendary artist Rick Baker, Murphy became completely unrecognizable as the elderly Jewish barbershop regular. The transformation was so complete that even people on set had no idea they were talking to the film's star when Murphy walked around in full costume and makeup. What makes this decision particularly interesting is that Landis saw it as a kind of artistic reversal of a problematic entertainment tradition. While blackface has a deeply troubling history in American entertainment and was used to mock and demean black people, Landis approached this whiteface portrayal differently. The character of Saul wasn't meant to be a mocking stereotype, but rather a fully realized comedic character who happened to be Jewish. The humor came from the boxing debates and the banter between the barbershop regulars, not from making fun of Jewish people. The makeup itself was incredibly sophisticated, taking hours to apply and featuring detailed prosthetics that changed Murphy's entire facial structure. Baker's work on the film earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Makeup, and the barbershop scenes became some of the most memorable moments in the movie. The fact that many viewers and even some critics didn't realize Murphy was playing multiple characters in those scenes is a testament to both Baker's technical skill and Murphy's ability to completely transform his performance style for each role. Fact 12. See you next Wednesday, Easter egg. If you look carefully during the subway scene in Coming to America when Lisa storms off the train, you'll spot a movie poster on the station wall advertising a science fiction film called See You Next Wednesday. This isn't just a random prop. It's director John Landis's personal signature that he's been hiding in his movies for decades, and the story behind it goes all the way back to his teenage years. The phrase, "See you next Wednesday," originally came from Stanley Kubrick's classic film 2001, A Space Odyssey from 1968. In that movie, it's the last line spoken by astronaut Frank Poole's father during a video message from Earth. Landis loved the line so much that when he was just 15 years old, he wrote his first screenplay and titled it See You Next Wednesday. The script was apparently so juvenile and poorly written that Landis has said he'll never actually make it into a real movie, but he pays homage to it by sneaking references into almost every film he directs. In Coming to America, the fake movie poster shows a science fiction adventure in the style of Barbarella, complete with a space girl in a skimpy outfit shooting laser guns on an alien planet. The poster even lists fake cast members including Jamie Lee Curtis, Dan Aykroyd, and James Brown, making it feel like a real 80s B-movie. Landis has used this same gag throughout his career, but changes what kind of movie See You Next Wednesday is each time. In The Blues Brothers, it appeared on a billboard as a disaster movie. In An American Werewolf in London, it was a pornographic film showing in a seedy theater. In Trading Places, which also starred Eddie Murphy, it showed up as a poster in Jamie Lee Curtis's apartment, designed to look like a classic Hollywood film from the Golden Age. The running joke has become so famous in film circles that other directors and even video game designers have started including See You Next Wednesday references in their own work as a tribute to Landis.